Alrighty, welcome back everyone to another day of the vlog. This is going to be the first episode in a series. I just uploaded the full effort of the Alp to Zwift climb that I had done. And after that, I'm moving on to my next kind of mission, which, as you may or may not know, is going to be going after Box Hill now. Going after a very fast time up that climb. And I mean, the real reason I'm doing it, is that, even though when I did the Alp climb, on that day, last week, whenever it was, that was everything I absolutely had on that day. However, looking back at it, I'm like, there are definitely things that I can improve. So I'm not going to say 34:58 is going to be my absolute peak. I think I could go faster than that. There were a few turns that I didn't have a good effort around. I didn't use the lightweight power up really as a boost. I used it more as an opportunity to recover the one power up that I happened to get. And overall, I was didn't really taper as much as I probably should have going into that effort. But nonetheless, like I said, that was everything I absolutely had on that day, but I'm never going to say, I'm not the type of person who's ever going to say that's going to be the greatest I can ever do, and so I'm just going to leave it at that. And so this is moving on to another challenge isn't me saying that's the best I could possibly do on the Alp. Instead, it's kind of getting back into more periodized training in that I could sit here for the next couple months and just keep chopping time away from the Alp. However, going on the assumption that maybe we're going to be racing in the fall, to be brutally honest with you, I cannot see how that's possibly going to happen without a vaccine. However, I'm going to go on the assumption as if we're racing, and so with that, I want to get back into kind of more periodized training here, where I'm going to go back to kind of just bigger powers and progress through. And yes, then eventually I'll attack the Alp later and maybe go even better, hopefully much better. But anyways, nonetheless, the next mission is Box Hill. And Box Hill, if you don't know, for me is like a 5 to 6 minute long climb. So it's going to be targeting, the training will be targeting kind of Vo2 Max training. And even though, let me say, I say I'm going back to more periodized approach. I don't start off in Vo2 Max training. I would start kind of with 6-10 second long efforts, and then the efforts would slowly get longer and longer and longer. However, I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not going all the way back to phase 1. Instead, I'm kind of going straight into VO2 training, and there's a reason for that, and I'll explain it when I get to it. Mainly the thing is I don't feel like I got a huge amount out of that lactic phase, and I think I could actually do it better this way. So I'm going to experiment with this new system, which I'll show you in a little sec here. So anyways, next mission is Box Hill, and with that I thought it'd be interesting because Box Hill is a 5 to 6 minute long climb. It's really a Vo2 Max type climb. It's going to end up being like a peak 5 minute power test. And actually on that, the reason that I'm doing a specific climb is because I found it so helpful during the Alp to Zwift phase to have a very concrete, physical, even though it's virtual, climb to target. And what I mean is, even though Box Hill is, let's say, a 5 minute effort, I think I can actually get more out of myself if, instead of just saying, oh, I just want to, set a peak 5 minute power, if I instead say, I want to see how fast I can go up Box Hill, which is around that time. And I think with that kind of external goal or target in mind, it'll make it A little bit more exciting, and B, which is what I really found with the Alp, it was quite exciting going after it and training on the climb and stuff like that. It was fun to do. And so yeah, I think I could get a little bit more out of myself by, instead of just saying I'm going to go after peak 5 minute power, I'm going to try to set the best time I could possibly set up Box Hill. And so like I said, I'm doing things a little bit differently this time. I'm going to show you my training peaks, and I'm going to show you kind of how I'm organizing the workouts, because Vo2 Max training is something I find very interesting, because you have to kind of be kind of clever in how you organize your work and rest intervals. and work to rest ratio, that is. And yeah, so I think it might be a little bit interesting to show you kind of the progression of things and how I'm going to try to improve kind of the Vo2 Zone 5 type power. So here's the mission, okay? Here on Zwift Power, to give you some context of like what's the goal with this whole thing. As I said, the side goal is set a peak 5-minute power, but we're going to try to do so trying to set an all-time personal best on Box Hill. In fact, we're going to try to see how close we can get to the all-time best on Box Hill. And so these times on Zwift Power, I'm using Zwift Power for this whole thing instead of Strava, because Strava's kind of getting like the leaderboard's populated with times that I think are a little bit less real, because these are users who they aren't registered with the Zwift Power. They may be using Z Power to be doing it, and so I'm going off of Zwift Power as like the true leaderboard for Box Hill. And with Zwift Power, it's only getting the times that are done in races. And you might say, well, what if there are times outside of races that are faster? Well, reality is that the time done in a race, given the nature of Box Hill, is very likely going to be the best time on Box Hill. And I say that because if you look at the gradient here, Box Hill's an average gradient of 4.5% roughly. And yes, that's taken down a little bit by this last few hundred meters, which it's very flat. In reality, this kind of middle section here is pretty steep in some areas. It's into 7-8%. It's not like Alpe d'Huez, but it's definitely kind of like a medium climb. But yeah, overall, it's not that steep of a climb. So the times that are done in races, I would say, are very likely the best times flat out, because you are getting a significant draft effect, which you're going to see in a second here. So in a race, my all-time best time up Box Hill, wow, I've gone down on the leaderboard since I looked at this last, but my all-time best time on Box Hill in a race is 5 minutes and 30 seconds, as you can see here. The power, and that was done last March 28th in a KISS Community League race, which is a very competitive race with basically all like Continental Pro cyclists and stuff like that. It's like the who's who of Zwift. And so yeah, my best time there was 5 minutes and 30 seconds. And I did it at a power of 375 watts. I was a little bit lighter then, a kilogram lighter, of 58 kilograms. And so that worked out to 6.5 watts per kilogram. Now, this past weekend, I wanted to get a baseline test of where exactly I was on Box Hill, what my time was, what my 5-minute power was, and so that I could adjust the training and create the training accordingly. So it ended up being a test within a long ride, but I did 409 watts, and that was an all-time peak 5-minute power, and that equated to a 5-minute and 27-second climb. And so that's what I mean by the times on Zwift Power are very likely the best times, because I did 409 watts, so it's 6.93 watts per kilogram. It didn't have any power-ups or anything, but the point is that was 6.93, and my previous best was at 6.5 up Box Hill. This time that I did this past weekend was 5 minutes and 27 seconds. The best time at that 6.5 was 5 minutes and 30 seconds. So despite putting 35 watts more power, I only went 3 seconds faster. So that's why I say these times on this leaderboard are very likely the best times ever up Box Hill. And so the time that we're targeting, or going to try at least to see how close we can get to that time, I'm not going to put any limit on myself, we're going to see what we can do. The best time ever was by the #1 ranked Zwifter out there, and he did 5 minutes and 13 seconds. As you can see, he actually did a lower watts per kilogram than I did this past weekend at 6.8 watts per kilogram, but it shows you kind of the power of the draft a little bit. So it will be very difficult to get to that time. I think it's going to take a huge amount of power, and I'm going to calculate that later, not in this video, to see what approximately it will take for me to get there as a solo rider. And yeah, so that's the time we're trying to get to. Now for the training. How are we going to get there? Well, like I said, a 5-minute climb is really going to be a Vo2 Max type climb, right? Vo2 Max is something any climb usually like anywhere from 3 to 8 minutes or so in that range is a Vo2 Max type climb. And so a 5-minute climb is right in the middle of that. Now, the important thing with Vo2 Max is that when you're designing training and stuff and how to improve power in that zone 5 is an important thing to keep in mind is that it takes around 2 minutes, 90 seconds to 2 minutes to get to Vo2 Max. And by the way, I know when I'm saying like get to Vo2 Max and when I say like, oh, then the first little bit's like lactic or anything like that, and then we're Vo2, I know full well that our bodies don't work like, you know, for the first 90 seconds. It's not like that thing they taught you in grade 9 or 10 or whatever, where it's, you know, the first 90 seconds or 60 to 90 seconds in that range is like all lactic, anaerobic power. And then all of a sudden a switch goes off and then we're all into aerobic power. It's not how it works. All the systems, I know full well because I've studied this quite a bit, all systems are going at the same time. In fact, the byproducts of various systems are fueling the other systems. So they're always going at all times, but nonetheless, it takes about 90 seconds to 2 minutes for the aerobic system to actually reach its maximal capacity. And what are we talking about with Vo2 Max? Well, basically Vo2 Max it's the max your lungs and heart can possibly work at that level, and on the other level, it's the most amount of oxygen that you could possibly take in, coupled with the maximum amount of oxygen that your muscles, specifically the mitochondria, can pull and utilize. So the aerobic system is truly at its absolute max at Vo2 Max, and for it to get there, like I said, it takes 90 seconds to 2 minutes. You know, if you walk out the door and go flat out for a mile, it doesn't instantly you're at 200 beats per minute. No, it takes time to actually build to that. Keeping that 2-minute number in mind, there are the true kind of classic Vo2 Max type workouts or intervals, which are in the 3 to 5 minute range. And the reason that those are like the classic workout for Vo2 Max of doing like a 5-minute effort, something like that, is because, like I said, it takes about 2 minutes to get to Vo2 Max. So with a 5-minute long interval, you're guaranteed around 3 minutes at Vo2 Max. You don't really need to do anything else. As long as you're in zone 5, you know, 106 to 120%, something in that range. I'm going to be doing these based not really off FTP, but more based off my 5-minute power, and that's how I'm designing the workouts, because I just did the test, so I could make it really closely linked to that. But anyways, if you're doing a 5-minute long interval and it takes 2 minutes to get to Vo2 Max, we get 3 minutes at Vo2 Max in each of those intervals. As an outright interval, you can probably hold Vo2 Max for about 8 minutes, somewhere in that range. But we're not going to hold 8 minutes all at once, because then we're not going to be able to repeat it multiple times. So instead, what we're going to do, if we're saying taking 5-minute intervals, for example, we're going to do, say, 4 times 5 minutes. And then we know if we're getting 3 minutes from each of those, then we're going to get about 12 minutes at Vo2 Max during that workout. And like I said, it's guaranteed, because you're going to build up to Vo2 Max type power, and then you're going to sit there for 3 minutes. So this brings me to my Monday workout. So the Monday workouts are going to be kind of your true Vo2 Max type workouts. So these are going to be intervals ranging from 3 to 5 minutes, probably a little bit more, probably 4 to 5 minutes in that range. And because, like I said, we're guaranteed Vo2 Max each time, I'm not as concerned about like giving myself an inadequate short recovery. Instead, I'm going to give myself a full recovery, because I know I'm going to hit Vo2 Max the next time regardless of what the recovery was. And yes, we could make the recoveries very short after these 4 or 5 minute intervals, but the fact is, like I said, you can only hold Vo2 Max for about 8 minutes. So if we were doing 4 times 4 minutes on 1 minute recovery, you're probably not going to be able to get to the final interval, because you're going to be at Vo2, you're not going to recover, and then you're going to be straight away at Vo2, and you're not going to be able to hit out as many intervals. So with the Monday workout, for this Monday, for example, I did 4 times 4 minutes, and the goal power was anywhere from 400 to 410 watts. I ended up doing 406 watts as the average. And with those, I did a 1-to-1 work to rest. So that was 4 minutes recovery after those intervals. And I'll show you a little bit of how that played out right now. So, like I said in the video, today we have 4 times 4 minutes, the first of these workouts. Hopefully they're all above 400 watts. Today, we're doing it on the London course. Even though that wasn't actually one of the specified courses for today, I could show you later a little hack you can do so that you can ride any course at any time, regardless of what the guest world schedule is. And yeah, the reason is because I wanted to do the efforts on Box Hill, just like how I did the Alpe du Zwift workouts on the Alpe. The reason is because I want to get in the rhythm of the cadence and the gearing, and that's really important to me. 400 watts at 100 RPM feels very different than 400 watts at 70 RPM like it was on the Alpe. So, or 350 in that case. So it's important to train at that particular cadence. If for the Alpe I was to do all my, 2 times 20 minutes on Tempest Fugit, yes, I would have racked up a huge amount of distance, and that would have been nice for my ego and stuff, but reality is that the cadence would have likely been 90, and then I would have went to the Alpe to do the actual effort, and boom, all of a sudden, hey, the cadence is like 65 around some of these turns, even getting down into the 50s around some of these turns. And if I haven't trained like that, then it's gonna be very, very difficult to hold power. My legs aren't used to that. So, in the same kind of thinking, today I'm gonna be doing the efforts on Box Hill. So 4 times 4 minutes, and we'll catch in throughout. It should be tough, very tough. Should be a true like Vo2 Max type workout. So we'll catch back in as we get going with things. Four, 4 minutes recovery, and we do it again. 3 more times. A couple better gear changes. Be more comfortable pushing power in the saddle. After the Alpe, I've got very, very comfortable pushing low cadences out of the saddle. I like to be a little bit more in the saddle, so it's a little bit more sustainable. Anyways, so we'll check back in as we keep this going. Bad gear change there. Like a minute and a half to go. Dropped my power by like 5 watts. I thought I was gonna drop the chain, so I almost stopped pedaling. And then, as you can see, absolutely drilled it out of the saddle for basically a minute and 15 seconds to get back to 405. Real tough, but again, I'm kind of amazing myself that I'm hitting these numbers right now. Coming off the Alpe, I think it's just given me so much confidence, like, because I was able to build the Alpe successfully and really like drill that last 5 minutes. It's just given me a ton of confidence into these intervals, because like there in the last 2 minutes of the Alpe, like we've been pushing 350 watts basically for 32 minutes, something like that. And then the last couple minutes is all above 400. So it's just giving me huge confidence, because if I'm able to do that after 33 minutes, then in my mind I'm just like, well, why can't I do it like for just 4 minutes straight up? So it's just giving me a huge mental boost. I don't think my legs have suddenly in the last 2 weeks just gone like completely like to another level. I think it's just mentally I pushed past this new limit. So now the rest is we're working off a new like mental maximum, not necessarily a Vo2 Max. We've boosted the mental capacity. So the rest of this is quite easy now. Amazing stuff. So anyways, we'll catch back in throughout the week. So that was the first workout. It was a great first workout in the series. I couldn't believe actually how low my heart rate was at the end of those. It was kind of weird. Actually late ever this week and last week and stuff like that, my heart rate has been I don't know if the heart rate monitor is accurate or not. I don't know, because it seems pretty low right now for some of the efforts that I'm putting in. But nonetheless, it was a great first workout. Now, as I said, it takes around 2 minutes to get to Vo2 Max. So you would think, oh, well, every Vo2 Max interval has to have, longer than a 2 minute long interval. Well, that's not entirely true. You can have intervals shorter than 2 minutes. In fact, you can have them shorter than a minute. However, the key with those, and this is why I say maybe this will be a little bit interesting to people when you're organizing your workouts and stuff like that, because with Vo2 Max workouts, the recovery is quite important and the length of the interval is quite important. And so with these short intervals, shorter than that 90-second to 2 minute range, this is where the recovery is really important. In fact, the lack of recovery is really important. So with a 1 minute long interval, 1 minute's not long enough to reach Vo2 Max. So if we do a 1 minute long interval, and then I take full rest in a 1 minute long interval, and then full rest in a 1 minute long interval, we're never going to reach Vo2 Max in any one of these intervals, because the aerobic system is starting from baseline every single time. With these workouts, that's where it's really important that you do the 1 minute interval. Yes, you don't hit Vo2 Max there, but then you don't allow for a full recovery, so maybe you only do 30 seconds recovery, then hit a minute again. Maybe you don't hit Vo2 Max there, but then only a 30-second recovery again, hit it again, and eventually it ends up looking like kind of a staircase, and eventually, yes, you will hit Vo2 Max because you're not allowing the aerobic system to get back down to baseline every single time. So that's what I'm going to be doing on Wednesday. So like I said, on Monday, I'm going to be doing kind of longer Vo2 intervals, and on Wednesday, this is where I'm going to be doing shorter intervals. And the reason is because I think there's benefits to both. The long intervals are great because it's going to be ending up what we're doing pretty much on the day. But then the short intervals, I think, actually also have a big benefit to them as well, because you can end up holding higher power because it's a shorter overall duration of the interval. And so with that, like I said, I'm not as concerned about actually improving Vo2 Max. Because it's probably not going to improve. I'm concerned with improving my power in zone 5. Let me zoom down onto Wednesday. So with this one, this is where I was doing 30-15s. And so basically the workout was 10 times 30 seconds at a goal of 425 to 475. They ended up being about 450. So bang in there. But here only 15 seconds recovery. So absolutely, on the first couple, you can absolutely crank out big power, right? However, you start seeing the heart rate starts creeping up and creeping up and creeping up and creeping up, and yes, eventually you're going to hit Vo2 Max, and then you're just hanging on as long as you can. So that ends up being a 7.5 minute long interval. I take full recovery after that, 7.5 minutes of recovery, and then we repeated that 3 times through, and I'll show you a little bit of that now. are just absolutely brutal. It's hard too because when you do them going up a hill, the cadence drops to like 40 in the recovery. So it's just like a high torque track start every time, especially with the legs. Pretty tired from this morning. Her body, I'd say in general. Just the heat took it out of me quite a bit. Anyways, we got one more round of that. Absolutely brutal. You got me spinning around and around in a world of you. Take me higher. And so finally, like I said, going all the way back to the beginning of this Getting Now long video, I said I'm not going all the way back to that like pure kind of lactic phase or like 6-10 second effort, because I think I could actually get more out of myself by doing it this way. And so what that is that on Thursday, every Thursday for the next few weeks when we're doing this thing, I'm going to be doing a Zwift race, and that Zwift race is going to double up as kind of a tempo session for the week and that really high power lactic session. With the race, I feel like I can get a little bit more out of myself with those like peak 30-second, 1-minute powers and stuff like that. Because the only way those workouts are really effective of doing like 30-second intervals or something like that is if you're truly giving everything you have for 30 seconds. And so I think I can get a little bit more out of myself with a Zwift race, and it's going to double up as a bit of a tempo session for the week. So basically like sitting in the group and stuff like that, not doing like absurd attacks or anything, like, you know, long time trial type attacks, I mean. But sitting in the group, just sitting tempo in the group, and then just spiking the power like crazy up a climb or in the final minute of the race or anything like that, or a final sprint to work just like that high muscular strength, or like high neuromuscular power, I mean. And so yeah, I think I could get more out of myself from that. So yeah, that's basically how the week's gonna go. But I hope this is kind of interesting, taking you through more the general picture of the week and why I'm doing certain things. So basically, to give you the rundown once again, Monday we're doing kind of a longer VO2 workout. Wednesday we're gonna be doing kind of a short, sharp VO2 workout with really short intervals, but also very short recoveries. And so like we're gonna do 30-15s, 40-20s, stuff like that. And then Thursday, I'll do a Zwift race with some very high power attacks in there. And we're doing some sprint workouts leading into the race as part of the warm-up. And then on Saturdays, we're going to be doing kind of a medium longer ride. And then there's some recovery rides and stuff like that through the week, and I'll take you through some of those later. In any case, that's all for now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.